Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Welcome to our webinar for residences at Discovery Square. I'm Elaine Stogberg, my husband, Nick Stogberg of Black Swan Real Estate. Perfect. Thank you for the couple of folks that have responded to make sure our chat is working appropriately. Always want to make sure we have everything set up just right for our webinar tonight. Can everyone see the screen share? There's a nice picture of this gorgeous building there. Can I get a yes in chat for that? I think our screen share is working.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Appreciate your time. Are so excited to share this deal with you. I, of course, want to start with just a moment of gratitude, thanking all of our investors that have reached out to me about our recent challenge in our family and with my health, and just want to speak to that and let you all know how much that has meant to us, and just pure gratitude. So excited to share this deal with you. So let's jump in. So Residences at Discovery Square is the sixth asset inside of Black Swan Real Estate Fund 2. So we're filling up the fund as we raise the capital. Very excited about the progression of Fund 2. We have a recap of the other 5 assets at the end of this webinar. And so folks who are already in the fund, I think it's really exciting to continue to see how your dollars are being invested. And for folks who are just now learning about the fund or considering the fund, maybe you've been on the fence or waiting for stocks or those sorts of things, really excited to share, not only Residences at Discovery Square tonight, but a tidbit about the other 5 assets that are in Fund 2. So let's get started.
Yeah.
Of course, our disclaimer, so we will be sharing our business plan, both of Fund 2 overall and then Residences of Discovery Square specifically. It's privileged and confidential information. This is a Reg D 506C offering, which means it is available to accredited investors only. Everyone is highly encouraged to review all of these materials, to review them with your own legal counsel, CPAs, advisors, to fully read the private placement memorandum and the operating agreement. Everything that we say today is either a projection of what we plan and hope to achieve with our business plan. Of course, no future results are guaranteed, or looking back at our historical results. And that's the financial disclaimer. I went over that as well.
A little bit about us, if you haven't seen this slide before, but we have a few assets under management, closing in on a third of $1 billion in total assets under management, probably tipping past that point here once we close on Residences at Discovery Square. We have over $16 million that we've raised in capital to date. We have a real estate sales team here, and we're one of the top real estate sales teams in the country, top 1/3 of 1% at Keller Williams, which is the largest real estate organization on earth. That actually makes us eligible for Gary Keller's personal mastermind. So we do a little bit real estate sales as well, and we have over $40 million in ground up construction that we're doing as well. So a little bit of experience with that, which is going to be really relevant to this particular project. Everything that you do in your life, when you think about financial freedom, investing, whatever, education is the number one outcome that you get. So this project, we're ready for this project because we've been doing this ground up construction thing. So I wasn't making money at that ground up construction thing we did before. It's getting ready for this deal and whatever that next deal is that's yet to come.
So Residences at Discovery Square is for our existing investors, or for those that have heard some of our webinars before, this really slots in so nicely to our Rochester downtown campus. And for those of you that are new to us tonight, you're going to get to see how we are excited not only about this deal, but about how this deal fits into our broader plan of acquiring and renovating and managing a number of assets all together. And Residences of Discovery Square really slots in nice. And because we have so much experience with managing this portfolio that we're building that's very close to each other geographically, we have very good predictions about how this one will behave as well. So it's a 129 unit apartment building. It also has 8,000 square feet of commercial space. And we're very excited about the potential that that brings for improving the value of the building, increasing the rents as we drive up traffic to the building, and really make this that mixed use space. We always think about creating living experiences for the people living in our buildings, and that commercial space is really going to go a long way to creating a really exciting living experience for the people living here. The building is nearly brand new. It was built in 2019, and unfortunately, it came online right at the peak of, or right at the start of COVID. And so the current operators have done an excellent job, weathering that storm. That was a time when we were acquiring a ton of this downtown real estate because it did struggle. And now we see from our own lived experience with managing buildings very close to this building that it has rebounded very well, that rents are high. We have a wait list. I don't think we have any vacancies in our downtown campus. And so we're excited to acquire this building and add it to that portfolio. It's a $27 million purchase price. And we're really excited about the deal that we've structured here. So it's very similar to the Nicholas deal for our Fund One investors, for people that know about that deal. We actually sent the exact contract from our Nicholas deal to the broker and the owner of this building to say, this is the example of the deal that we put together on a building just a few miles away, similar purchase price, similar size. We'd love to replicate that with you. And they were very excited about that. It's very exciting for us and for our investors because it minimizes the amount of cash that we have to put into the deal. We are acquiring a $27 million building with only $3 million of capital down. So that's huge for increasing the rate of return because we have a smaller amount of capital in. And then also, we are acquiring the debt that the current owner has on the building. And everyone knows that right now, the thing that people are talking about the most is interest rates. And we are getting 2.37%. Like, let me say that again, 2.37%.
It's not a typo.
Right. It's not like it's backwards, right?
7.32%
right.
Will be a more appropriate interest rate to get on a deal like that today.
Yes, like so excited about the ability to assume this debt from the current seller. And it's because of our relationships with these regional banks that they know us as excellent operators. They know us as excellent asset and property managers, speaking to our experience on a couple of slides back. And so they're excited to add us as signers to the note, to add our management team as managing the building. And so it's just such a win-win deal that, I mean, we have about as close to free money as we can possibly get for the bulk of the financing for this project. We have that for another 2 years. And then we have no interest or payments on $4 million of the purchase price for another 2 years. So just really excited. I really want you to just hear that and think about how the terms of this deal, they're almost unbelievable. Mm-hmm. We know that they're believable because we did it on Nicholas a year ago. We're doing it again almost exactly a year later. I'm very excited to see this process repeat itself.
It's not easy to get these kinds of terms. It takes a tremendous amount of work to put together a deal like this, and it's not 100% a done deal yet. We've still got a few weeks to go before our anticipated closing date, ironing out a few details. It's not easy to do the deal this way, but it is very rewarding. It's a win-win-win deal for the buyer, for the seller, and for the lender involved. It's a lot of stars to align to put together a deal like this, but we're happy to do the hard work to get the good outcome. So we proved that with Nicholas, and we've been able to prove that again. In fact, the listing broker who sold this property sold us one other property in the past where we had to do some creative work to get that deal to work as well. And again, we're so glad we did that deal too. So it's easy to just go offer the highest price or to we do the hard work to get the terms that make it an amazing deal for everyone.
Absolutely. And then Mark asks an excellent question. What happens with ongoing financing when the debt that we currently have in place for the next several years, when that ends? And that dovetails perfectly into our last bullet point there. So we're going to share with you tonight our value add plan to increase the value of this building, about 9 to 10 million. Those are our projections, but that gives us plenty of runway. Yep. That even if we're only able to increase it 5 million or 7 million, and our pro formas are looking at debt at 7% in the future. So even if there's still very high interest rates several years in the future, we have a clear plan for a cash out refi in just a few years. So let's dive into sharing that plan. Next slide there for me, please. We wanted to show, I'm doing quite a bit of the talking tonight because Nick is a little bit under the weather.
I got a COVID shot and a flu shot on the same day. I don't recommend that. I don't usually get like a big reaction to it, but I actually took the day off of work today. Elaine will tell you that's a rare thing for me to take any day of the week off of work. So yeah, I'm struggling a little bit today.
So this asset is beautiful. It was built in 2019. We love the finishes. It slots in perfectly with the assets that we manage that we know do really well. Go back to that photo because I want to speak to kind of a very nice but simple kitchen. We find that our renters love this. It's simple. It attracts our ideal resident where they're usually like a young professional or a young family, maybe a few roommates. They're looking for something that has like a feel that's similar to maybe when they were living with their parents or living in a home, and they want that nice home feeling in an apartment as they are at a different stage of their life. We have several buildings that look almost exactly like this, and so we know that this is going to perform very well. Obviously, very open floor plan, built in 2019, so has the floor plans that people want, the amenities that people want. It's hard to describe how well this slots into our entire portfolio.
Yeah, this isn't class A++ luxury, but it's very nice. I mean, this will be, in some ways the nicest building in our portfolio. And this is basically anyone's going to be happy living in a building like this. It's not necessarily ultra luxe by any means, but it's a very premium living experience.
So there's a couple other pictures I scrolled through there as Nick was speaking. Nice bright bathrooms, large bathrooms, lots of natural light, taller ceilings, all of the things that you would expect from a well done 2019 build. Someone said, I can totally live there. Me too. There's another view of the kitchen from the other way. So you can see there's the deck door there, lots of bright light. Again, those tall ceilings, just a place where people can see themselves living, feeling very comfortable, very safe, very clean.
Really nice set of amenities with a fitness center, 2 clubhouses, rooftop terrace patio. There's only probably 3 buildings in all of Rochester that have that type of amenity stack. And then the main floor commercial space, when we get that built out with the proper commercial tenants, is going to offer a really unusual, really premium living experience for anyone living in this building. But it's a little bit more affordable. So the other comparable assets that have that kind of amenity stack would be Riverwalk and Maven and Berkman. Those would be the other 3 that have that kind of amenity stack. But those are a more expensive, they're kind of a half notch above this. We really love being in that sweet spot right there, where you're kind of ticking every box that everyone might be looking for, but you don't necessarily have to get the highest rent in your market in order to make the numbers work. You're in a really safe spot in the market. So we really love the spot that this asset occupies.
And that's a spot that we have always willingly chose to occupy as a property management company, but it's especially important as we may potentially be going into a period with increased unemployment or wages holding steady. So again, it's the business plan that has always worked for us in the entire decade plus that we've been doing this, but it's especially important in like a recessionary time. Here are the common areas. They're very bright. Each floor is a different color, which I think is kind of a nice touch. You can see that the hallways are very wide. The carpet is light. The walls are light. There's many lights throughout. So again, that clean, safe, comfortable feeling. You can imagine as someone is doing a tour here from the time they step into the building all the way through their unit tours, they look at the amenities, the feeling that they have that this is in a great location. As Nick mentioned, it has all of the amenities, the space, the commercial space that we're going to fill, but it's not the highest rent in town. So what we try to create in all of our business dealings is that something is a no-brainer decision. That if someone is looking at this building and maybe a few buildings that aren't quite as nice, and maybe some of those really premium buildings, this is right in that sweet spot that they feel like they're getting everything they want and need at a price that's comfortable for them. So
yeah,
it's just a beautiful building.
Yeah, there's a question there. Why is the seller selling this building? It looks to be too good to be selling something like that. So this is a building that's gotten off the ground very slowly. They've only recently completed their lease up, and we're gonna see that here in just a moment, where we see the rent growth month over month. Yeah, they're hoping to have exited this building by now. They're kind of behind where their business plan would have put them. They've not yet had the opportunity to finish out that commercial space, to build out some additional units. So there's a lot of work of value yet to be added to the building, and we're going to talk about that more in the presentation.
So this is the time where we have to talk about seasons of life. That's a topic that's near and dear to our hearts. We're always thinking about that in our personal lives and our business dealings. How can we understand a situation by understanding seasons of life? So without sharing too much about these sellers, it's a married couple. It's not an institutional owner. And the first number in their age is a 7. And the first number in our age is a 3. And so we're young and hungry and excited to continue with construction and continue building and continue the lease up in this. And their first number starts with a 7. And so a project that they were thinking they might have wrapped up in, say, 2020 or maybe early 2021 has taken a little longer through the pandemic. And they're ready to enter the winter phase of their life. So it's all about seasons. It's all about solving problems. When one person is in a season and another person is in a different season, there can often be a win-win solution there. And that's exactly what's happening in this building. So excellent question. Here's our downtown campus. So if you're listening kind of more podcast style, this is a time to go over to your computer or pick up your phone, not if you're driving, but if you're in a safe place where you can look. I think this is a really compelling visual. So here we are looking at downtown Rochester. Over on what is my left, you see St. Mary's Park, and then the red area is the Mayo Clinic Hospital campus. And the red area on kind of the center right is the Mayo Clinic outpatient campus. So Mayo Clinic is obviously the largest employer in Rochester, and the two campuses are spread apart by about a half a mile. And you see here in the red squares are all of the acquisitions that we've had that our property management, Black Swan Living, manages. We have Nicholas Apartments, Oliver Apartments, Raymond, Uptown Landing, Lofts, Zick, Uptown Terrace, Hamilton, Furlough, and the one
City Hall,
and residences of Old City Hall. And then at the bottom of the screen in the larger orange square is residences of Discovery Square. So you can see how this slots in perfectly with this downtown campus that we're creating. There's a couple of other apartment buildings on there, but it's getting to a place where we manage most of the residential real estate in this downtown area, and it really gives us economies of scale, allows us to have excellent leasing processes of if someone calls and they're maybe looking for a 1-bedroom apartment, maybe we don't have any of those available, but we have a studio or a 2-bed, or they say I have X budget, well, we can give them a number of different options across different buildings. Some people like something a little newer, like Residences of Discovery Square, which is a 2019 build, or Nicholas, which is a 2015 build. Some people want more of that historic charm. Some of our buildings here are over 100 years old. And so we're creating this situation where if anyone would like to live in downtown Rochester, we are a big solution to their problem. It's likely that they will live in one of our buildings, and we're excited to add an additional 129 apartment units. And then we're also going to talk about the townhome units that we'll be adding. And that will be some of the only type of housing in this area for folks that want a little more space, but still want to live in the downtown area. So very excited about how this fits in, have a great grasp on the management of this asset because we're managing so many assets close by. And then one of the things that we always talk about as we're giving advice to fellow real estate investors, people will ask, well, where should I invest or where should I acquire? And we say you should always invest in your backyard. So we live about 6 or 7 miles from this asset. Our office is about 5 miles away from this asset. And you should invest where as a local, there's something happening that makes that area very valuable. So of course, Mayo Clinic makes this area very valuable, but this park expansion, this huge park expansion that's happening because of the city of Rochester is just about a mile south of Residences of Discovery Square in walking distance. And none of this construction is starting yet. this is public knowledge, but we know it because we go to city council meetings, we talk with developers, we stay very in tune with what is happening in our community. And so we're very excited to acquire an asset that's part of our downtown campus, that's part of that greater Mayo picture, but then is also in walking distance to this huge expansion that's happening in our community. This will be the nicest public recreation area in all of Rochester, and that's saying a lot. So Rochester is known across the whole country as a place with amazing parks, amazing public areas. Despite the fact that our weather is, very cold and kind of crummy a lot of the time, we're people who like to be outdoors, who like to be in community, and this is going to be the attraction of Rochester. Do you want to speak about it a little bit?
I mean, this could be one of the nicest parks, if not the nicest park in the entire state. When they get to like the later phases of this development, they're gonna redevelop an 18-hole golf course, 100 acres of prime urban core land into just it's every possible attraction you could imagine. They're gonna have like a Zen garden and a yoga area. They're gonna potentially put in an entire stadium complex, lots of cool things, and the proximity here is powerful. So this little block right here is just this street is right across from this street right here. So residents of Discovery Square, it's a huge building. It's an entire city block. It's an entire city block going from 4th to 3rd Avenue there, and from 5th to 6th Street. And then just south of it is this park. So it's not several blocks away. It's 1 block away to this park complex. So in just a few years, on the north side is the entire Mayo complex, and then on the south side is going to be this incredible recreation space.
Yeah. One thing that we're not speaking to in this webinar that we don't have slides for, just because there's only so much we can cover in any given night, is the Destination Medical Center initiative. So I'll spend just a minute or two on that. So I'm back at the screen of downtown Rochester. The Destination Medical Center is the largest ever public-private partnership in the state of Minnesota, and it's the largest per capita spend on infrastructure in the entire country. Let me say that again. It's the largest per capita spend on infrastructure in the entire country, in a city that has already won awards as the best place to live, the best place to raise a family, the best education. Rochester has won those awards in Forbes magazine, Money magazine, Niche, going back to the early 90s. And then it's getting even better with the Destination Medical Center initiative. And that is happening to the north of this building. So St. Mary's Place is going to connect the 2 campuses that I described a few minutes ago. Right now, that's a street for cars, and they're going to turn that into a pedestrian area so that there's better transit between the 2 campuses. Heart of the City is another that's right next to residences of Old City Hall. And then just right south of this will be this park expansion. So it's just an area that has a long legacy, a great relationship with Mayo Clinic, which has an impeccable reputation, impeccable finances, is an amazing employer. And then on top of that, Destination Medical Center. So if you don't already understand Destination Medical Center, I highly encourage you to read their website. It's just dmc.mn. And just a few minutes on that website will help you understand why we are so invested in Rochester, why we believe so much in this community, why it's such a profitable community to invest in. And keep the questions coming. We love them. They help us to kind of make sure we're meeting your needs tonight with our presentation.
There's also a really neat opportunity with this property. There's a TIF, or tax increment financing district, for this particular property, and the seller came up with a really kind of graceful solution to it. So it's common for new property developers to obtain incentives from their city. Typically, some sort of affordability component is the most common incentive. So in this case, it's a really mild affordability component where 20% of the units in the apartment building need to be leased to people who are at 80% of area median income or below. So that's an affordability component. A certain number of, quote unquote, lower income people need to be tenants in the building. Now, in Olmsted County, the median income is so high, and the cost of housing is so low, relatively speaking, that that's not as big of a deal. And then in this case, typically student housing does not count for affordability, covenants. Like if this was a Section 42 property like Douglas Trail Townhomes that we recently closed on, you cannot use students in those to meet those affordability requirements. But in this case, we can. And so the University of Minnesota Rochester is a kind of a cornerstone tenant of this building. Currently, 43 of the 129 units in the building are leased to UMR. And that meets that affordability requirement. So we're able to get that tax increment financing amount of $128,000 per year. And basically that's a rebate on the taxes that we pay in. So it's a pay as you go rebate. And then we plan on continuing this this master lease for the indefinite future, so long as that continues to meet the needs for that TIF package. So it's a really, really favorable kind of combination, to have a master lease on your apartment building to a student housing provider, and to have that meet the requirements for your TIF package. It's a really, really desirable, master lease client as well. So these are nursing students for the most part. They are not in the room very often. We've already walked every single unit, and it's definitely, there's not a lot of partying going on in those units. These people, they're just working all the time. The units are kind of spartanly furnished. Just imagine a nurse in nursing school, and that's pretty much what all the tenants are right there. So with this master lease, the UMR, they cover all your vacancy, all your turnover costs. We just have to make sure that the building is kept up to par, and hold up our end of the deal. But it really makes it a very lucrative, very win-win arrangement.
It's helpful to speak to the University of Minnesota Rochester. So obviously this is a branch of the University of Minnesota, and it is expanding rapidly in Rochester and doing really well. So in addition to this building, it recently has a business relationship with a local hotel, where the hotel is actually going to be converted to all student housing. UMR wants more units in this building. And at the most recent negotiation, the current property management group decided not to allow additional units. I don't know what we'll decide in the future. I think it will just depend on price and kind of how things are going in the overall market. But this is a great, not only is it great for all of the reasons that Nick mentioned, but it's a great fallback plan that if for some reason we struggled with managing vacancy just in the general market, we know we have the University of Minnesota that wants as many units as they can get in this building.
Yeah, the current management group, they said they had an opportunity to essentially renegotiate that master lease to allocate additional units, but they knew it was going to be a lot of work. They knew that they would potentially have to non-renew some of their current market rate tenants, and then they'd have to renegotiate the master lease. And they basically said, yeah, we just wanted to leave it at the status quo. This is the type of situation where we really excel. So we know there's an opportunity in here where we can step in, we can do the hard work. Heck, we can probably relocate many of these market rate tenants to one of our other properties, so they're not even displaced. They stay at a similar rental rate. And we know that UMR is somewhat desperate for additional housing units, particularly if they already have units in that building, because they like to keep their students together. Another nursing school, Luther, they just took over another apartment building in another I can't think of a way to describe it. It's a former assisted living facility. So it's a just explosive growth in this space for these nursing schools in Rochester, and these schools are desperate for student housing. So this is an area where it's entirely likely we'll be able to renegotiate that master lease in a way that's a win-win for everyone, but will ultimately generate more income for the asset. Yeah,
absolutely.
So this is I don't know, the most exciting thing to me.
This is the value add plan. This is where the millions of dollars of value is going to come from.
Yeah. So right now it's probably about 15,000 square feet of just unused space. There is an entire city block of completely unused, built out white box space on this building.
It's crazy when you say it that way, but that's what it looks like when you walk in. You're
from street to street to street.
You're like, you have to like yell for the other person to hear you on the other end.
Yeah, it's a good 3-minute walk of just vacant space. And what happened was they brought the building online right as COVID hit, and then it took a long time to lease up the building. And so they kind of pumped the brakes on building out the rest of the space, because you have to put more money into the asset to build out that space. And finally, the building is full, but they never did kind of circle back around to building out the rest of the space. It's really rare to just be given this, beautiful white box, a blank slate that you can do all sorts of beautiful things with. Really unique zoning in place on this space. So this could be commercial space or it could be residential space. We're going to convert probably about 2/3 of that to residential space with some urban townhomes. And then the remaining third, we're going to build out. There will be basically 3 or 4 commercial spaces, really beautiful Class A plus, main floor retail commercial space. And then this beautiful atrium where we could potentially put in some cafes, coffee vendor, that sort of thing, kind of like a little, mini shopping mall type experience or something like that. This is in such a desirable location. There's tons of foot traffic here. And as it is, it's a big hurdle to filling the building because when you walk in, like it's a little creepy. You walk in,
it's like an industrial feel.
Yeah. There's just you need to go to the elevator to go up to the residential space. And once this is a thriving commercial area, lots of it's just going to be a really cool vibe. That's going to probably make the rental units that much more desirable. So as it is, there's already electrical panels, heat and air magic packs for 14 bays. And our goal is to convert all 14 of those bays into these urban core townhome units. I'll show you some sketches on that. Power of relationships, by the way. So the architect who has been working on this project, she's been working on this project for like 5 years. It takes a lot of work to knock down a whole city block worth of homes and to eventually erect a structure of this staggering size in a location like that. So she's been, that architect's been happy to work with us, through this contract period, getting under contract on this asset, and kind of share with us all the ups and downs associated with, the original engineering and build out of the structure, and what we should know as we're planning to build out these additional units. So an unbelievably valuable relationship for us to have in our back pocket. She's actually the architect for Stonehaven townhomes that we're actually building right now.
Yep.
And that's our goal, is actually to build out, kind of like Stonehaven townhomes in these urban core townhomes. So we'll probably spend about $2 million building out those 14 townhomes, and those are approximate numbers right now. But we already have basically all the zoning we need. We would just need to pull building permits. We've got some architecture work that's already been done. We're about as ready to go as you can be. Very likely we'll build these out with cash. So if we had to get a construction loan and go through that whole process, it could take us a year to get this project going. It might be 30 or 60 days for us to get this project going if we do this build out with cash.
We can start in the middle of winter because it's inside of a building. Yeah, just really excited about this construction project. I was just thinking that I had a meeting with our architect today about improving the landscaping and the exterior facades of our other buildings in this area. So she just knows this area so well, knows what people want, has worked on this particular building. Just couldn't ask for a better set of players that are coming together to make this not only a successful project, very profitable project, but a project that can happen very quickly. And so we're able to get the best of both worlds of a built, relatively full apartment building, and then also the value of new construction. Usually you get one or the other. You get the stability of a built building or the delayed timelines and over budget that comes from new construction. And usually, as you're building new construction, you're generating equity. And we get a little bit of both. I was thinking about this today, and this is a bit of an oversimplification, but I do think it helps to understand, the numbers of this building. If you think of this building as, the empty ground level space and then 3 levels above, we're acquiring the building at a little less than 30 million. Let's say 30 million, just for numbers' sake. About a quarter of the building is unfinished. So we're finishing a quarter of the building. And so in doing so, the intent is to grow the value of the building to about 40 million. Again, all of that is a bit of an oversimplification. We're going to talk about the numbers very specifically, but I think that gives you just like a quick 30-second understanding of where the tremendous value in this project comes from, that we're buying a building that's essentially a quarter unfinished, and we're going to finish it and generate the value there.
And this is a very common strategy, by the way, for developers to undertake to just like when you build a single family home in our market, you typically don't finish the lower level of that home until later on. So you might build out your apartment units, fill up those apartment units, then you build out your main level, We're additionally going to add a parking lot in the southwest corner of the building that's just never been built out, and those would be really, really valuable parking units for us to have. They haven't been needed until now because that main level wasn't built out. Those will be really valuable parking units for us to have. Right now, the city is just parking their work trucks there, so it's just kind of a vacant lot, and that's going to add a ton of value. And then we're going to have 3 main level, really beautiful floor to ceiling glass retail spaces. And there's a luxury restaurant operator that I think they had kind of the nicest restaurant in Rochester, and the building that their restaurant was located in went out of business, and that took their restaurant down with it. So there's a whole, is a really just tragic thing that happened. So they still have all their trade fixtures. They still have their ovens and tables and chairs and everything sitting in storage. And we've kind of had a couple preliminary conversations there with them. That would be kind of our ideal tenant. So again, having a good relationship with the architect of the building, I said, did you have any vision for who the users would be in these different bays? And she said, oh, absolutely. That main north area, we assumed it would be a luxury restaurant. So we've already got it set up where you can do your ventilation, which is really difficult for restaurant users. They have tons of ventilation needs for their kitchen. The plumbing is all set up so you can do your commercial dishwashing and everything. You're right next to you've got like a trash stall right there. So just it would be really neat if all the stars aligned and we could bring back this really incredible restaurant that I think everyone in our community really misses it.
Yeah.
If we could bring that back as part of this project.
Yeah. Here are the townhome units as designed by the architect. So these are the mock-ups. You can see how they have, so they're very tall. So they have like a half second story, just open space, tall ceilings, lots of natural light. They're on that ground level, so they get tons of light coming in. And they're actually 2-bed units. You can see here the doorway, kind of right in the middle of the screen is the doorway to what in this picture is like a dark bedroom. And then the second bedroom is right above. So you have this kind of very grand looking and feeling main floor living space, 1 bedroom down there, and then a second bedroom up top. So this gives you a different view kind of looking from the top in. You can't see the second bedroom here, but imagine it's right under the bedroom that you can see. So it has that kind of loft open feel. These kitchens will feel very grand with these very large islands and lots of cabinetry space. These will rent very well, knowing what we're able to do with our rents at Nicholas and Oliver. Oliver has units that are larger like this, and they rent very well. Everybody wants them. We know that these will rent very well, and we're going to do them with essentially the same finish schedule and style as our Stonehaven townhomes that we have in Byron. And again, we know that people love that. They just walk in and start touching the countertops and the cabinets and are just drawn to those finishes. But it doesn't cost that much to do it here because it's a relatively small space as compared to our townhome units in Byron, which are much larger.
Yeah, we already have the floors, the ceilings, they even have heat and air already. So the expensive part has already been done, and we're going to be able to build them out in a fraction of time. We just broke ground on our most recent phase of Stonehaven Townhomes, phase 3. And so that was probably 2 weeks ago that we broke ground on that. And we will be lucky. We will be lucky if we are as far as these are by like April of next year for us to put
That pains me to hear.
to get slabs in the ground, to get wood frame structures, to get everything buttoned up, to get heat and air. So we just have such an incredible head start. We will be able to place these units into service incredibly quickly, get them pre-leased, get them online in a very time predictable fashion, especially in a climate like ours. Unbelievably excited about these units. I think these will even be a notch nicer than Stonehaven. We're gonna like the glass banisters, and we're just going to have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, I think they'll feel very modern. I think they're going to fit this downtown campus very well. They're going to attract someone that wants to live in a building that has a coffee shop and a restaurant and is very walkable to that amazing park that we talked about, walkable to work. We know from the demographics of the folks who are already living in our downtown campus, there's folks that don't have cars. They really want that walkable lifestyle. There's folks who are maybe a little further in their educational journey, think like medical residents, fellows, postdoctoral folks who still need and want the convenience of an apartment where they don't have to deal with lawn or snow. They have underground parking, those sorts of things. But maybe they want a little more space. Maybe they've gotten married or they have a child. And so these units are really going to attract those folks. There are a few units like this in Rochester at the Berkman, which is the nicest building in Rochester. It's the largest, I'm sorry, it's the largest transaction in all of Minnesota history, real estate transaction. And the Berkman has a few of these units, and they rent really well. They rent at a rate much higher than we're predicting. So, that we tend to be very conservative with our pro formas and our projections. So, when we look at what the Berkman is offering for rents on their townhome units, our projections are much lower than that, but that gives us a lot of runway that we can have.
We're projecting 3,000. They rent them for 6,000 a month.
Yeah, there you go.
They've got a nicer product than we have, but we tend to be very conservative in our projections.
Exactly. Yeah. So, even if we're able to get, say, 4,000 per month for these, still significantly less expensive than Berkman, then our numbers are even better than they already look. So we're very conservative in our projections, but very excited about these units. Here's another way, that you can look at it, just for kind of people who like different, visual looks. But these are the townhome units. Again, all of these plans are ready to go. All of the permitting is ready to go. The zoning, we literally just have to basically sign the check to the builder.
Yep. So we talked about.
Someone had asked about rent projections a little while ago. Yeah. So this is the slide for whomever asked that question.
Yep. How close are those rents to your projected rents? Yeah, we're going to dig into that deep. So as we said, this building only recently leased up. It got off to a really slow start. This was an urban core asset that came online right at the peak of the pandemic. So it had a lot of vacancy for a long time, and they offered a ton of concessions to fill up the building, which is just a common thing to do whenever any building comes online, but especially with this building. So if you turn the clock back a year, they only had 138,000 per month in gross potential rents. You can see that's kind of ticked up month over month all the way to August 2022, where it's at 180K. So that's a huge month over month and year over year growth. We're very confident we're going to be able to continue that. So going back to that question of, well, why would they want to sell? Well, while this has been ticking up each month, interest rates have gone up. And honestly, if they had sold this thing 6 months ago, I bet they could have sold it for like 32 million. If I was to take a guess, maybe 7 months ago, that's where interest rates were at then versus now. And at some point, they finally had to say, if interest rates go to 15%, we're not going to be able to sell it all. So we need to sell it now while we still can. But there's a tremendous amount of opportunity to add value to this building just by getting up to market rate on these units. At this time, really none of the units are at market rate. They were moving people in at subsidized rates to get the building online. So right now, the average in-place rent for an alcove unit, which is not a studio unit. So we have studio units where there's just a living room. These alcove units, they have a bedroom. It's a very small bedroom, so it's not technically like a one bed, and maybe it has like a barn door, not like a true locking door or something like that for fire code purposes. On our studios, we're at $1,325 a month. So for these alcove units, I bet we could get close to where we're at on a one bed rental rate for other buildings, but we're just penciling in $1,350, which I think is a relatively conservative number. But you can still see that's like a 25% premium over where the average rental rate is right now. That's a crazy margin that you can drive a truck through that spread in terms of driving an improvement to net operating income for the asset. On a one bed, I think we can go from $1,300 to $1,600. On some of their larger units, I think they've done a great job getting premium rents, but then I have to wonder, is our imagination just limited or something like that? Because they are really, really nice 2-bed, 2-bath units with like 2 totally separate living areas. They've got dual sliding glass doors with like 20-foot balconies.
Mm-hmm.
They're really nice units. So maybe we can get $2,600 a month for them or something like that. But we don't have a proven 2-bed, 2-bath unit anywhere else in our portfolio at a rate north of this. So we're probably way too conservative in our projections. We probably lose a lot of deals because of that. But just a tremendous amount of opportunity there. Townhomes, hopefully when we're done, we'll have 14 of these townhomes, and just kind of shooting from the hip, we're going to say $3,000 a month for those townhomes. We don't know what that rental rate is going to be, but we're going to start there and see how that goes. Right now, they're not charging for internet. They provide every single unit has its own router, has dedicated Spectrum internet, that's high quality internet service. In our other buildings, we charge $55 per month for that internet service. I think that's just another, kind of subsidy thing that they did to facilitate the lease up of the building. So we're going to go to, and that's the market norm. Other assets will charge up to $75 per month for internet services. We charge 55 just to be just a little bit cheaper. So that's another, revenue generation area. Garage parking, extraordinarily low price at $125 a month. That's kind of a crazy low price in my opinion. I bet we get to like 200 a month on these parking spaces. We'll say 175. And then surface parking, we're going to add an entire surface parking lot to the building, and we'll get at least $100 per month per space for those surface parking units. Or we could potentially lease those to our commercial tenants as public parking spaces as well. So you can get a hint at some of the value add opportunities that are available here. Just a really simple kind of mathematical exercise. Let's say we just do $55 per month times 100 units. So only 100 out of our 143 units take those internet services times 12 months in a year is 66,000 a year in income, divided by let's say a 5.5 cap. So we're adding $1.2 million of value to this asset just with very modest projections of marketing and charging for a service that's already available within the building. So these are some of the ways that we're able to add massive value to these buildings.
And we feel very confident in these rent projections, again, because we're managing so many of the buildings right in this same area. And these are the rents that we're getting there. So that's really the value that comes from that vertical integration, from that property management piece, is we don't have to necessarily look at comps and projections and those sorts of things. We are the comp. So we just look at our rent rolls from our other buildings, look at the inquiries that we're getting, the wait lists that we have, and then we're able to make those projections as we're acquiring more buildings in the same geographic area.
It's critical to speak to how different that is from the industry standards. So typically you would do market research. You would call other apartment buildings and do internet research to see, okay, what are comparable units renting for? Who cares? That's a very synthetic academic exercise. We literally brought our entire leasing team to the building, walked them through each unit type and said, how much can you rent this for? You are the person that is going to manage this, that's going to be leasing okay, well, this unit is just like this property. It's a little bit nicer than this property, a little bit less nice than this property. I got 7 inquiries this week on this property and we didn't have any vacancies. I know all 7 of those people would have rented this in a heartbeat at this price.
Mm-hmm.
We have up to the second very concrete data that tells us how much we can rent these for. So we were able to, in the past and as time has gone by and our portfolio has gotten bigger, we're able to get increasingly accurate pictures of what our rental rate should be.
Everyone wants to hear about pro formas. So if that's what you're here for tonight, listen in.
Yep. Yeah, if anyone has questions about pro formas, feel free to fire. We're getting a growing list of questions. We'll make sure we answer all these questions before we leave, but we do want to get through this, get through all of our content here for everyone who might have a time commitment or something like that. So 18 months from now is when we think we'll basically hit most of our targeted financial outcomes for the building. And then 2 years from now is kind of our deadline when that in-place financing expires. And we need to get new debt on the property. Mark had a question about that. This is a big deal. We need to be thinking really critically about where are we going to be 2 years from now. Typically, we get 5-year fixed rate debt on pretty much all the assets that we get. That's a really long time. So it's very unlikely you could ever be in a bad spot, by the time you get to 5 years from now, because the loan is paid down, and typically we increase rental rates and performance increases over time. So we need to just be thinking really critically about where is this asset going to be performing 2 years from now when that current debt expires. So let's just run through a few of these numbers here. I think we're going to get our gross potential rent up to 2.4 million. That's based on those rent projections that we just showed you multiplying by the different unit counts there. 128K income from that TIF agreement, 747K income from that master lease agreement. There's escalators built in that master lease agreement, so the rental rate actually goes up each year with that master lease. And that's assuming that we don't renegotiate that master lease. So if we do allocate additional units to them, we would insist on rent escalations for all of their existing units in addition to that. Mm-hmm. Because we have negotiation leverage in that situation. That would give us 3.15 million of effective gross, gross potential income there. We're penciling in 150K of potential commercial income. That's a really conservative estimate. So normally this type of space, you might get like $27 a foot, something like that. So 27 times about 8,000 square feet. So that'd be about 216,000 of income that you'd get from that space. And then you can typically charge, CAM, common area maintenance. You can charge management, all sorts of things. You can charge those commercial tenants, utilities. But we know it's going to take some time to fill up that space. We know that we might give like some concessions in the rental rates to have the tenants pay for their own tenant improvement or TI build outs. We would prefer that the tenant spends their own $1 million or whatever if they want to do an ultra luxe build out. We're not going to spend that much on a build out for a bay, and we might give them like a mildly discounted rental rate, for the first portion of their lease to account for that essentially. So a really, really conservative income amount that we penciled in for that commercial space. In addition to that, we penciled in 15% vacancy, further handicapping that down to 127K in commercial income. Taxes. This is kind of a fun thing. So the current tax assessed value on this building is $32 million. So usually you don't buy the building for less than the government thinks it's worth. In this case, we're getting a pretty good deal on this building. So much so that we're actually buying it for less than its tax assessed value. So we're going to just take that purchase agreement to the assessor and say, yep, we need you to reduce the tax assessed value to the sales price to what we just paid for it, which they'll be happy to do. We have a really good relationship with the assessor. So we'll actually get a reduction in our taxes down to 500K there. We have an insurance quote in hand from our insurance agent. This is another neat thing about having so many other assets, so many similar assets. We know about what it costs to run one of these buildings. So we have an estimate there of 150K for repair, maintenance, and cleaning. Because we run all these other buildings that are nearby that are similar size and type of buildings, we know how much it costs to run one of these buildings. Really high utility expense because we have a little bit of utilities that we pay for with the master lease. We're going to pay 26K for apartments.com package. And then this is really fun. We're only paying, 1.29 million per year in debt service here because we have that 2.37% interest rate debt. Overall, this is going to give us a 51% rate of return for the first 2 years of this deal. So a pretty staggering rate of return, and we'll get up to probably like a 14% cash on cash. Now, these are all pro formas, we'll see exactly where things land, but I think we're being appropriately conservative on these pro formas, and it's going to take a minute for us to get here. It'll take 6-9 months for us to get up to this level, I'm sure. But those are just kind of a snapshot at what this looks like. 2 years from now, I think we could easily get like a $23 million note on this. Maybe we only get a $20 million note on it. We'll see. I think we're being really, really conservative in that scenario. But if you factor in the cash flow, debt pay down that we make along the way, the money we put into our build outs, I think we're going to be in a pretty good situation when it comes time to put that long-term debt in place 2 years from now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
The numbers are just so good. And the numbers for the other deals in Black Swan Fund 2 are very similar as we're seeing the market shifting a little bit. Like Nick mentioned, perhaps if they had sold this 6 or 7 months ago, they would have been able to get a higher purchase price.
Probably.
And it's interesting that not only are we getting the discount, but we're getting the discount because interest rates have gone up, but we're getting the good debt. So we're getting like the best of all of the different situations. And then, again, speaking to that, we're buying an existing building, but we're doing more construction, the vertical integration and the management that comes from this. There's so many, if you kind of think of the building in the center, there's so many different ways that value is coming into the building to meet our projections and hopefully to exceed our projections. We tend to exceed our projections with all of our pro formas because we're so conservative. We really design our pro formas that we can sleep really well at night, knowing that things just have to go kind of steady to meet these pro formas. And if anything goes better than planned, which most often it does, then we'll exceed these. Again, it's all projections. Speak to your advisors, those sorts of things. But we're very excited, when we see these numbers and the qualitative plan that goes into this as well.
We've got some really killer deals. City Hall, Riverview, we've Douglas Trail. We've got some crazy deals in Fund 2. Oh, this is totally unrelated. We've already leased 3 units at Douglas Trail. So we went from 1,000 a month to 1,300 a month. So a 30%.
And when did we close on that?
Like
14 days ago,
something
13
like that.
days ago.
So we've already renovated. We've renovated a single unit, and we've now leased that unit 3 times.
Oh, interesting. As like the show unit,
right?
So then,
essentially,
okay,
yeah.
Awesome.
We weren't 100% sure about how well that was going to go. It is just.
And we have a slide
exploded.
for Douglas Trail if you haven't heard of that asset before. Let's jump into the other assets for Fund 2. I want to answer a couple of questions here that make sense. So the way to invest in residences at Discovery Square is Black Swan Fund 2. So that's blackswanfund2.com. That gets you into the Invest Next portal. You can review the PPM, the operating agreement, sign that, submit your capital via ACH, or the wiring instructions are in there. We're down to under 5 million available in Fund 2, have every expectation that it will fill. Our firm deadline for capital hitting our bank account is December 23rd, because all of these assets have closed and Residences of Discovery Square will close in 2022. So we want our investors in Fund 2 to benefit from all of the depreciation. So December 23rd, or when it fills, that's the deadline for Fund 2. The minimum for Fund 2 is 100,000. Someone had asked if they are already invested in Fund 1, if it's possible to come into Fund 2 at a lower amount. Email us and we can consider that. So blackswanfund2.com, if you've been on the fence or you've been looking at the deals, or a lot of people like to come into funds a little bit later when the assets are known. So now's your time. This is the 6th asset that's going into Black Swan Fund 2, and they're all amazing. We're going to speak to them here in a few minutes. They're all a little bit different. So there's, that the benefit that you get from a fund is there's that diversification, a little bit of geographic diversification as well. One of these properties is in Tacoma, Washington. The rest are here in Rochester, Minnesota. Some are stronger on cash flow. Others are stronger on equity and value add. But together, it's a really nice package. Certainly, I think it exceeds my expectations of what I thought we would be able to put together this year. And for Fund 2, just very excited about the opportunities that have come our way. And then, so that's kind of the questions about how to invest in residences at Discovery Square, being a part of the, that 50% total annualized rate of return that we're projecting in our pro forma, the 9 to 10 million in value add that we're projecting through increased rents, excellence in management, and the build out of the townhomes and the commercial space, blackswanfund2.com. Some folks have asked about, we are putting Residences of Discovery Square, only Residences of Discovery Square, not the assets that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes, but Residences of Discovery Square will be co-owned by Fund 1 and Fund 2. And the reason for that is we have so many assets in Fund 2 that we're running out of money in Fund 2. And not only do we need the money to acquire Residences of Discovery Square, we need the money to finish the construction. And we have money in Fund 1 because we just re-levered all of the single family homes in Fund 1. So we have liquidity there. And so it makes good sense to have that additional protection where the 2 funds will co-own the asset. That will help with the construction costs, with everything that needs to happen as we're increasing the rents and the value of the building. And then, of course, the distributions will be shared amongst those 2 funds. So it's an interesting way that we can bring together the resources that we have with these 2 funds and benefit the folks in Fund 1. It's all proportional. So there's no loss to Fund 2 because Fund 1 is also participating in Residences of Discovery Square. The ownership will literally be, dollar for dollar of which of the funds puts in capital to the asset. Is there anything you want to add about that? That's a couple of questions came up about Fund 1 and Fund 2 tonight.
Yeah, this is a superpower that essentially everyone in the fund has access to. So this is a big deal, right? If this, asset had transacted, 6 months ago, I suspect this would be like a $32 million deal where, we're under contract at 27. I think when we're done, it could be worth as much as like 36 million. In general, you want to have your deal size be proportional to your ownership group size. So by bringing those together, I think we have a really good balance. Like it makes no sense to try to split up a relatively smaller asset like Residence of Old City Hall, but this is a big asset. Physically, it's a big asset. It's an entire city block. This thing is just massive. and we're going to be able to distribute the benefit of that asset, and just make sure that if we ever need to put money in the asset in the future or something like that, we're not expecting that, but we're able to distribute that risk as well. So this is a really incredible superpower that we have access to by being able to partner Fund 1 and Fund 2 together. If we had bought any other deal that was a 30, 40, $50 million deal, and there was a $50 million deal that we had written an offer on here a few weeks ago, we would plan to partner those funds as well, just to distribute that across the funds.
Yep. Someone had asked about, can someone invest through a QRP? Yes, absolutely. IRAs, 401ks, all of the different retirement accounts. Certainly QRP is a vehicle as well. We have a member on our team, Rachel, who can help with paperwork and those sorts of questions. Or of course, you're always welcome to block a time on Nick or I's schedule. Someone asked, how will you fund the build out at Residences of Discovery Square? So we will fund that with cash, and that's to facilitate speed. So typically you're working on the construction loan at the same time that you're working with the city on zoning plans, those sorts of things. Everything is ready to go. I wasn't exaggerating when I said, really all we need to do is write the check to the builder and they can move their tools and their people in to start building. And so to facilitate that speed, we will pay for the construction with cash. And the goal is to do the down payment, pay for the construction with cash. We will still be into the asset for less than a typical buyer would have for a typical down payment. A typical down payment might be, say, 30%. So that would be close to, say, 8 or 9 million on a $27 million purchase price. And we'll be into the building for around 5 million, plus or minus a little bit with that construction. And then we'll do that refi process as we increase the value through the build out. So excited about that. That makes it so much easier to get the workers in there, get the construction started, so much less administrative overhead without a construction loan.
It's going to give us a ton of speed and flexibility.
Yep, absolutely. Someone asked just a technical question about our student housing units for University of Minnesota at Rochester, about security cameras, and are the units separated? So all of our buildings have security cameras. In 2022, even a 100-year-old building can have security cameras fairly easily. It helps with people feeling comfortable. It helps with management in terms of folks don't let their dog pee or poop on the carpet or leave trash behind if they know that they're on camera. And then obviously the big things like crime. Blessedly, Rochester is a very safe place, and there's very little crime in Rochester overall. Of course, these things do happen, and so cameras help with that. And then the student housing units are all on one floor, so that really helps with their safety, their security, their comfort, their community feel. And then UMR has done a really nice job in terms of having kind of lower level resident RAs, like resident advisors, resident assistants, that are responsible for, say, 5 or 6 of the apartments, and then kind of house managers that are responsible for, say, like 15 units at a time. And then of course that all goes up to true leadership at the university. So it works out really well. We've heard from current management that it's a really nice relationship with UMR. The students are very comfortable there. There's few, if any, problems. And then of course, we're doing our part with making it a safe, comfortable place. There's like controlled access to the building, those sorts of things.
Yeah, you need a key fob just to even access the elevator to go up into the residential
Kind of like
units.
a hotel.
Yeah, it's just like a hotel. So there's a really good security system in place. In fact, it's the same security system that we have in place at many of our other buildings. We already have the software to access those cameras. Custom Alarm is the company that does that. So we really like it.
Someone had asked, when do we expect our first distributions for Black Swan Fund 2? So I would expect that probably about a year from now. So when Fund 2 is about 6 quarters old, that's when I would project for any of our funds that we're able to start our first distributions. In those first 6 quarters, we're raising the capital, spending the capital, doing construction on every one of the assets in Fund 2. We're doing considerable instruction. That is our business plan. That's really how we create value, create wealth. So that's what we're doing in those first 6 quarters. Of course, with that construction comes vacancy, so there's lower rents at that time. And then after things have stabilized a bit is when we're able to start distributions. At the end of this presentation, after we go over the assets here, either as a reminder to folks or for those that are new to us, I go over how our funds work and how they're different than kind of a typical syndication or fund.
$2 million for construction includes townhomes and commercial space too. So these are very approximate numbers. 2 million should get us 14 townhomes of the sort that you just saw. There's a universe where if we did full 2-story townhomes, it could cost more than that. And that does not include the commercial space. So I could see us spending 3 million on construction if we did, just like the largest square footage, nicest finishes imaginable, and then did some build outs for the commercial space. Our goal with the commercial space, if we can, is to get the tenants to pay for the build out. And this is a common arrangement to get into. Basically, what we need to be running it with a full head of steam in terms of net operating income by the time we get to that deadline 2 years from now when the current debt expires. So we don't really care very much if we lose, let's say, $100,000 of rent over the next year, but the tenant does their own $100,000 of build out. I hope that makes sense what I just saw there. That would be a win for us to have the tenant put in the money for their own build out versus us putting the money in for the build out, and then we can just forego that rent income until that subsidy terminates a year from now. It's a very common strategy to use for initial lease up of a commercial building. Another question: if we invest an additional amount of money now, would our returns be any different than the investors who invested at the start of the deal? So the answer is no. Some funds have like a pref payment or something like that you pay on undeployed capital, something of that nature. There's incentives that we could offer, but I think complexity is the enemy of execution, and the last thing we want to do is put some other gamey incentive into the fund. So our fund has probably 1/10 of the fine print of a typical fund, and we like it that way. This is a really short window of time for any investor relative to the time frame of our fund, which is 20, 30, 40 years. So if a couple of months of interest on your investment make or break this for you, well, maybe you don't understand what we're doing here. Like this is a 20-year investment, so it's from our perspective, that's a trivial difference one way or the other. So there isn't a whole lot of room left in Fund 2 at this time. So we certainly welcome anyone that wants to invest in the fund or increase their existing commitment if they want.
Yes, I want to speak to that. So especially over the last couple of weeks, I think as stocks are maybe rebounding a little bit and people are a little fearful of the stock market. Lots of folks who are already in Fund 2, who maybe some of the folks that are listening tonight, just excited to see where your capital is going, are emailing asking about increasing the amount that they have in Fund 2. That's a very easy process, just takes a little bit of additional paperwork. I would bet we've had probably 20 in the last week or so. So if you're thinking about that, I think a lot of people are thinking about tax advantages as we approach the end of the year. It's very easy. Just email either myself or Rachel and we'll take care of that for you.
Yep.
Let's go over the other assets that are in Fund 2, and then we'll wrap up with a summary of Fund 2, either to refresh your memory, or if you haven't heard of Fund 2 before, if you're new to us.
There's actually one last question. Can we make it a furnished unit? So it actually includes 16 very nicely furnished units right now that get premium rental rates. We don't have that anywhere in our pro forma. Again, our pro formas are probably too conservative. So 2 of those I know are actually leased to the Mayo Clinic with somewhat perpetual short-term leases. Lots of really cool advantages to those. So we'll probably keep those furnished units at this time and expand it if it's successful. A high amenity community like this can be really successful with those furnished units.
So Tanara Villa was our first asset that went into Fund 2. This is in Tacoma, Washington, which is what we think of as our second headquarters. 130 units. It's a 1970s build. That bottom picture there, you can see there's a very large lawn between the buildings. They all face this lawn. You wouldn't find something like this with construction today. Land is just way too valuable to have that much empty space. So we acquired Tanara Villa for a hair over $24 million. We are targeting at least $36 million in value after our renovations over the next several years. We are doing a renovation of every single interior unit, every single common area like hallways, those sorts of things, all of the exteriors. And then in this lawn that you see here, we are doing over $1 million of landscaping and improvements for like a shared outdoor living space, like grills, seating areas, yard games. Very excited because this community is just a few miles away from the sound, And it's kind of a ho-hum community right now. Well, it's already in renovations. I wish we had pictures of the renovations, but when we acquired it, it's kind of a ho-hum community in a very thriving area. So we own another community, Garden Court West, that's just a mile away from this, that was very similar. It was a 1960s build. It had some outdoor space that just was kind of drab. No one had ever done anything with it, and the interior units hadn't been renovated. We've doubled the value of that building of that community in about 15 months. And so we have a clear plan to do that again at Tanara Villa with the same team, just about a mile or so away. When we acquired it, it was a 55 plus community, not because of any covenants or land use restrictions, simply because the owner, he was quite funny with it. He said,
It's clever.
I just didn't want to renovate it. And I knew that the older finishes would attract an older demographic. So I appreciate that he had some marketing there, but that just doesn't make sense for Tacoma. Tacoma has a younger population. It's working professionals. It's people who work in Seattle but want to live in Tacoma to have a little more space, a lower cost of living, be out of kind of the hustle and bustle of the big Seattle area. So Tanara was acquired in, I believe, June or maybe July. It already has had runaway success with renovating the units, leasing out the units, and then starting on this exterior space here. So that's about, let's say, 10 to 12 million of value that we'll generate in Tanara Villa, hopefully more, because again, our projections tend to be pretty conservative. Douglas Trail, you're the one that's all fired up about Douglas Trail. We just closed on this.
It is
about 2 weeks ago.
It's crushed it. So this is our first section.
Thank you to Riley, who is our producer tonight. Riley is our director of growth. He leads our leasing team. And it's really our leasing team that they have to put up these numbers, and they do an amazing job with providing an extremely high level of customer service, with making the leasing experience very exciting, having the opportunity to take people around town to all of our different assets to really find the living experience that they're looking for. So just so grateful to our team for helping with all of the wealth creation that we're doing for our investors.
Yeah, this is our first Section 42 community. I could spend way too much time talking about it because this is...
You have approximately 90 seconds.
Because I'm just so excited about what we're doing here. The way these communities usually work is you get this really subsidized loan from the government, and you just kind of let the community, I don't know, slowly deteriorate. You don't ever renovate it. And we bought this community for the same price the seller paid for it in 2017. I don't know about you, but I feel like real estate values have gone up since 2017. The property had just slowly deteriorated in that time, and they had become distressed with a variable rate loan that they could no longer service. So we were able to pick it up at an extraordinarily inexpensive price. We were able to get very favorable debt on it with our regional bank connections. It was originally 4.85% fixed, and finally we landed at 5.15% fixed. We actually do have an offer from HUD for a cash out refi for $13 million in loan proceeds, so $2 million more than we paid for it, and we just closed on it 14 days ago. So I don't expect we're going to jump on that offer, but it's neat to just have that in our back pocket there. In-place rents for like $1,000 per month for a 3-bed unit, and we've already proven multiple leases at $1,300 per month. Our team is just it's a full court press. We've got a crazy number of contractors in our operations team and our leasing team out there, getting in touch with all the existing tenants, then renovating units. We had some investors in town that we were touring around. We went and drove by a unit where we had ripped out all the flooring. Not Elaine and I, but so the contractors
we used
to do that. Contractors had ripped out all the flooring, and we're renovating a unit. But the mere idea that you would renovate a Section 42 property is so weird. No one does that. And we're gonna, I hope, just redefine what it means to be a income restricted property or an affordable property. Just because income restricted doesn't mean it can't be nice. And I think that you can attract a premium rent on an affordable property if you offer a premium product. I want everyone from around the state, everyone from around the country coming to visit Douglas Trail and saying, wow, I have never seen a Section 42 property this nice before. And why doesn't everyone do it this way? So this has been, I was keeping my expectations conservative on this because we'd never done Section 42 before, but we're exploding out of the gates. Our outcomes have just blown away my wildest expectations so far.
while we were under contract, we negotiated with the sellers for no additional, increase in purchase price, that they replaced all of the roofs in the entire community. That was about $700,000 in value. And then they replaced many of the driveways. So how much do you think that was in value?
A couple $100,000.
Yeah. So probably about $1 million of additional value.
All new landscaping. There were just a million things. Like there's little.
We were kind of afraid they wouldn't close when they had figured out how nice we had helped them.
Fortunately,
make it.
It's an out-of-state seller that has never visited the property once, never. So they did not realize how nice we were helping them make the property. We even retained the on-site staff. So the on-site staff, they were like, "Man, it looks so nice now. We look forward to staying on with it. It's been just a beautiful experience for everyone."
Riverview Suites, we have not done a full webinar on Riverview Suites because we acquired so much at once that we didn't want to kind of confuse everyone. So
we had four giant closings here 2 weeks ago. It was a busy week.
I think we had a closing Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So this is your first time learning publicly about Riverview Suites. A lender that we know and trust brought this deal to us because the current operator was struggling and they wanted to get this asset off of their books. We acquired this one for the price that the previous owner had paid for in 2017, complete coincidence with Douglas Trail and Riverview Suites. So this was a $5 million purchase price. We are going to renovate all of the units. We also have a very advantageous seller carry, 20% of the purchase price carried by the seller with no interest and no payments for 5 years. So bringing that total average interest rate down and bringing debt service down. And then we got fixed rate debt for 5 years at 5.15 from a regional bank in Iowa, a little over a 16% cash on cash in year one for Riverview Suites. You can see there the building is attractive. It's got a great parking lot. It's in a wonderful location next to the river in town and on Civic Center Drive, which is a kind of a main thoroughfare here in Rochester. And the interior units just look, kind of drab. It's rolled vinyl flooring, older appliances.
25-year-old finishes.
Yeah. And so, renovating it to the standards that we know, people want today, this will slot right in, with our renovation projects. How many renovations do we have going in any given week?
We have 54 renovations in front. It's just a crazy amount. We have
That's a lot.
54 going right this second. That's not including our 70 new construction units. And so this building alone, we have 16 units in active renovation right now.
And we closed on this one about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Well, again, we've had a full court press on this one. This is a really great building, amazing bones. Just the operator really struggled. Like they were not current on a single one of their bills. The electric company, they owed $15,000. The electric company, we took over their website here yesterday and found out they hadn't paid for their website in 2 years. And we're just constantly reaching out to lenders saying, hey, are there any assets that you want to get off your books? Please let us know. That's how it came to us. But so just an operator that really had some financial challenges. The bones are amazing though. These units, they've got, gas magic packs, which is a super premium, heat and air system, huge square footages in the units. Some of the units are over 1,000 square feet, wide hallways, sloped roofs. It's not a flat roof, it's a sloped roof.
You can see there in the top, you can see that sloped roof. Not only is that really important for visual appeal, but for maintenance reasons, it's very nice to have a sloped roof.
Yeah, it's on the river. It's got a huge amount of green space. There's a playground there that's probably not actually safe for children to use right now. Again, just the maintenance hasn't been kept up on it, but a really big green space. And here's the coolest thing of all. So it's across the street, it's just to the north of what will be the nicest building in all of Rochester. So Sherman & Associates has won the development contract with the city to redevelop a public lot into a really cool space there. So we're trying to reach out to them and say, hey, can we partner and maybe use some of this green space to a greater effect? So this is a really cool deal.
That's in Fund 2. Residences of Old City Hall. So it was literally the old City Hall of Rochester, this beautiful 1920s historic dynasty asset in downtown Rochester. Underwent a really comprehensive adaptive reuse project about 20 years ago to convert it into multifamily housing. Again, an older person owned this building and was ready to enjoy kind of the sunset of his life and didn't want to keep managing it, so sold it to us. Half of the purchase price is carried by the seller with no interest and no payments for 5 years. We actually acquired this building with only $500,000 down, and all of that actually went to a construction escrow. So you might say that we acquired the building for $0 down, because as we complete our renovations, we will be able to draw back that 500,000. So kind of depending on how you think of it, you can say we have 500,000 down or zero down. We have a 25% projected cash on cash rate of return in year one. So even assuming we did no renovations, we added no value, which of course we would never do that. That's always our business plan. But let's assume we were super lazy and didn't renovate a single unit and didn't add value in any way. This building would have a full return of capital to investors through cash flow alone in 4 years.
So here's, one of our renovated kitchens. The renovations aren't done yet, but all new stainless steel appliance package, all new, very premium LVP. You can see the base trim is still ripped off. It's not 100% done. The new updated light fixture, the new updated faucet, the new pulls, just a million little things. Here's the all new LVP throughout the main living area there.
And it's hard to see in these pictures. I am really excited about our in-person event for 2023. It's going to be September 15th, 16th, and 17th, because these pictures do not really help you understand how large these windows are. You do not find windows like this in apartment buildings. You find windows like this in like $2 million homes, because this was the City Hall of Rochester. So it was built to the best of the best of the best. And all of these windows were replaced about 10 years ago by the previous owner. Some of the units are actually like 2-story lofts, and they have like 20-foot windows. You can see on the front of the building there. Again, the picture does not really show you the scale. Like, really cool. Kind of look at the flagpole, and then look at the flagpole and then look at the size of the windows and think about the flagpoles that you don't typically see windows the size of flagpoles on apartment buildings. This building has won awards as the best place to live in Rochester for many, many years, because it's so unique and it enjoys such a premium location. So people just flock here that, maybe they're coming from a bigger city, or they just kind of stumble upon it and they know they want to live in an apartment and all of the conveniences. They want to live in downtown, but given the choice between just kind of a normal apartment building or this very historic, interesting, culturally significant building with these beautiful windows and beautiful spaces, people choose this building. And then we're going to further improve that by, what Nick had shown there with the flooring, the kitchens, the bathrooms.
Yeah, Mark had a question of how's the leasing going at City Hall. So we had a unit that we turned over. We have one unit that we just barely got turned over in time to lease, and we went from, I think it was $1,200 per month to $2,100 per month, $1,200 to $2,100. So a staggering spread in rental rate, and that's just the power of good operations and renovations. And right now we have no economic vacancies. We have 4 units that we are actively renovating out of the 22 units there. So there are a lot of renovations that we have in flight right now, and they are all just so exciting to see these transformations happen before our eyes.
A huge appreciation to our operations team, which is led by Stephanie. Many of you know and adore Stephanie, and also our construction team that's led by Tyler and Sawyer. They're working their hearts out to renovate these units as quickly as possible in a cost-efficient way that's really high quality, really working collaboratively with our subcontractors of balancing. You have a triangle there of speed, cost, and quality, and we want the best of all of it. And because we're such a large customer, our subcontractors rise to our expectations, and the economies of scale. I mean, I almost faint when I hear 54 units. But then I know that we get a lot of value from that because our subcontractors know exactly what we want, the quality that we want. We're able to we basically create their schedule for them of, hey, if you have 6 workers, here's the schedule for your 6 workers for the next 6 weeks. You can imagine as let's say someone owns a flooring company, that small business owner loves to work with us because one of their biggest concerns as a small business owner, which is how do they make payroll? How do they keep their crew busy? We solve that problem for them. And it obviously creates tremendous value for our buildings and for our investors. And then Hampton's Townhomes, this is a smaller deal. We also didn't do a public webinar on this one, just $1.5 million in purchase price. I think it shows you how we're very flexible with looking for deals where we can generate value. We don't, we buy everything from $200,000 single family homes to $30 million large apartment communities.
We just closed on a $400,000 triplex in Fund 1 a few weeks ago. Its next door neighbor is like a $1.2 million single family home. It's a very historic. It's across the street from the foundation house. So we're doing deals all the time in the funds, and this is such a ridiculously strong deal that I mean we'd be crazy to turn our nose up on a deal that's only $1.5 million. So we're very excited about this deal. It's just
what we really like about it is you can see there from the picture, because it's on the corner, because of the way the garages are structured, it feels like a full community.
Yeah.
So we were able to get a full neighborhood feel for $1.5 million. 25% of the purchase price was carried by the seller. You're seeing a theme here that we're able to work with sellers to say, as interest rates rise, we'd like for you to carry a portion of the purchase price at 0% interest, so that balances out our interest rate and drives down our average interest rate. But then we're also working with our local regional bank partners that we have great relationships with to get phenomenal interest rates. So we got a 5% fixed interest rate on this for 5 years. So when we're seeing other real estate investors in the 6s, the 7s, the 8s, we're in the 5s. We're at 4.85 for one of our deals because of these relationships. And
because we signed on the note. So,
exactly. Yeah. Speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. So most syndicators, most fund managers, they'll do non-recourse loans. And what that means is, if for some reason the deal went south and the lender had to repossess the asset, that does not necessarily have a personal impact on you running the deal. These are full recourse loans. So if for some reason, let's say we bought a deal for $10 million, put an $8 million loan on it, and the bank repossessed it, only got $6 million out of it, Elaine and I would still owe the remaining $2 million.
None of our investors.
None of the
I
investors.
It's perfectly clear that none of our investors. It is only Nick and I that signed full recourse, and we do that so that we can get these numbers.
Yeah, it's very unusual though for the sponsors to sign on the loan. In fact, other sponsors might say that we are naive or something like that for doing that. But the end outcome is we're able to get ridiculously better debt, because when the bank looks at a deal like this, they say, well, we're not really giving a loan on this asset. We're just giving a loan to the Stoggenbergs. And we know them. We really like to lend money to them. So no big deal. And our balance sheet is large enough, our net worth is high enough that it kind of dwarfs the value, especially of a smaller asset like this. So the bank, it's just an easy decision for them to give us a really favorable loan.
So hopefully that was fun for those of you already in Fund 2, or for those of you contemplating Fund 2, to hear about the assets that are in Fund 2, and to also hear about Riverview Suites. And so there's another glance at Riverview Suites, and then Hampton's Townhomes that we didn't do public webinars on, to speak to. There sometimes is a fear in the industry that fund managers might fill a fund with duds. They'll really highlight their best deals and then kind of pad it with some duds. That's not what we do, because our chief metric is payback period. And here in a minute, I'm going to talk about how the fund works, but we don't get any profit whatsoever until our investors are completely repaid. So the only people we're really harming if we put duds in our fund is ourselves, because we're pushing that payback period out, which means that's longer, that we get no profit whatsoever. So I hope it was fun for you to see, some of what we consider to be kind of the bread and butter deals that are just kind of our daily work, the daily deals that we're putting together that we didn't do public webinars on. We will transition now to the last part of our webinar. I think this is like the fastest webinar we've ever done. We're only at 6. I'm afraid this guy's going to like pass out on me, and I'm going to have to do it all by myself.
This might kill you. One last note here on the Hamptons.
Oh, super fun.
So Riley's on this call. Riley bought this fourplex right here. This is the most important thing to us. Like, I noticed Justin's on the call. Justin also owns real estate. We want every single member of our team to be investors. So I just wanted to point out that Riley bought the neighbor across the street. We closed on them at the same time. We are going to make this like the nicest block in town. We're all doing.
And Riley's personal home is like a mile and a quarter from here.
This is a super nice area, and both of these assets, like, they haven't been updated in forever. Like, they're definitely the least nice house on the block. And whenever you can make the least nice house on the block the nicest house on the block, that's when really cool stuff happens. So just wanted to share that fun. This is like a highlight for me.
That is fun. Okay. So this is how Fund 2 works. It's just like Fund 1. It's just like how we project Fund 3 will work when that opens in the future. It's very different than industry norms. So if you're considering Fund 2 and you haven't heard about it before, try your best to kind of set aside what you know about typical syndication or a fund aside, and listen to the unique way that we structure our fund. So one of the things that's really important to note is we have no fees whatsoever. So we have no asset management fee, no acquisition fee, no loan recourse fee, which is really important because we sign on the note. So we could be taking fees for all of that and we just choose not to. We really think that fees disalign the incentives of the GPs and the LPs because the GPs are working for a profit stream that's unavailable to the LPs. And we just don't think that's right. So we lead with, we put our money where our mouth is, or we walk the walk, so to speak. And so we only profit from our funds the exact same ways our LPs can, which means we have no fees whatsoever. Here's kind of a 5-year plan of how the fund works. So in the beginning, you're investing in the fund, and then we're taking that capital and we're acquiring real estate. We're improving that real estate through renovations and management improvements. And then after things stabilize, that's what I was saying, maybe 45 minutes ago or so, after there's some stabilization there and the vacancies go back down after renovations have happened, NOI is going back up, then we start to do cash flow distributions, typically around, say, quarter 6 or so of when a fund opens. Again, all of this is just projections. It could be quarter 5, it could be quarter 7, but around that year and a half, kind of right before year 2 mark, we're really thinking, are we able to get some return of capital back to our investors? Around year 3 or so, we're really targeting that cash out refi as we've improved the value of the properties. The number one criteria for us to do an acquisition is to have a clear path to a cash out refi. So that's the thing that we look for. Of course, we're looking at the location, the asset, the rental rates, the management, all of those things. But the number one thing is, do we have a clear path to adding so much value that we can exercise a cash out refi? When that happens, we do a full return of capital to our partners. And that's our number one metric is payback period. How quickly can we get capital back to our partners? And then a big difference is our partners stay in the deal after all of the capital has been returned. So kind of a typical deal might be they do a cash out refi, they pay some portion of the profits out to investors, and then investors are out. And then the GPs just keep that property forever. And again, we kind of don't think that's right, that the investors are there for the risky part of it. And so they should benefit from the long-term part of it. So we keep our partners in. We anticipate that any given fund will be open about 20 to 25 years. And again, I really want to stress that you have all of your money back. Sometimes people will say, well, I don't want my money tied up for 20 years. You get all of your money back in, say, year 3, 4, 5. I'll speak to that in a second. You have $0 in the deal. It's an infinite rate of return model. We tell people to plan for 5 years for return of capital because we're big believers in very conservative projections. Historically, it has never taken us that long. We would consider that to be a bit of a failure on our part if it took 5 years. We're really looking at like that 3-year time frame. We've had some deals that can go as quickly as a year. For example, in Fund 1, we did a portfolio of 29 single family homes, and we've re-levered all of those homes in about 10 months. And so that's how we're able to acquire more assets in Fund 1. After all of your capital is returned, you have all of your original investment back, you have $0 left in the deal, you stay in the deal indefinitely, and you'll get quarterly cash flow distributions. And then every about 3 to 5 years after that, just depending on market conditions and further renovations, often our renovations are phased because we do such deep value add that we might have a 3 or even 5 phase renovation plan and do cash out refis along the way. We will do future cash out refis, and our investors participate in all of that profit as well. And so I would estimate that in those years, the return might be like 10x what is in like a normal year. And then that process will repeat itself about 4 to 5 times in a 20 to 25 year period. At about 20 years, we'll start looking at what the macroeconomic situation is like and making a plan for liquidating those assets. Investors participate in all of the profit that's generated there at the final sale of all of those assets. And then once all of that final equity distribution is out to investors, then that's when the fund officially ceases to exist. An important thing to note, especially in November of 2022 with 100% bonus depreciation phasing out, is you don't have any bonus or any depreciation recapture for decades. So depreciation is great. It's less great if you can keep it for say 2 to 3 years and then there's a sale, versus if you can keep it for several decades, if it can solve a tax problem for you for a significant portion of your lifespan. That's something that's really important to note that's different about our business plan. let's speak about why we do an indefinite hold period, because it is, pretty different from the industry. It's something we've always done. We've never sold a single asset in the 12 years that we've been investing. We think that an indefinite hold period is good for everyone that's involved in the transaction.
Yeah. So it's very common. We've seen apartment buildings where in the last 10 years, they've changed hands 5 times. We think that's a bad thing for the tenants living in the building. We think it's a bad thing for the building where there's 5 different generations of value add remodel that's been done. We think it's a bad thing for the investors. Constantly needing to recapture depreciation, as Elaine just said, and that's honestly probably an artifact of all these fees being charged. People trying to maximize the fees that they get on acquisition and disposition. So we run the numbers all the time on thinking about selling things just to model it out. And it just never makes sense. If your deal is going so great, why would you ever sell it? Some people would make the argument to kind of when it gets to its maximum performance, that's when you want to sell it so you can get the best possible price. Well, what we do is we do a cash out refi, and then you get most, if not all, the capital that you would have gotten back on a tax adjusted basis, and you get to keep the asset. That golden goose keeps laying eggs.
And it's important to note that a cash out refi is completely tax neutral. So yes, if $50,000 hits your bank account from a cash out refi, the IRS doesn't take a single penny of that, not a single penny, because it's backed by debt. And so the IRS doesn't consider it to be income. And that's really important, because if that was $50,000 from a sale, there would be tax consequences from that and depreciation recapture. This is the basis for how Nick and I have built all of our personal wealth with our personal portfolio that we've built over the last 10 years. We own probably close to about 50 million ourselves right now. The number one question we get is, how did you buy so much real estate so quickly? You're so young. Where did your $10 million down payment come from, right? Because if you do the math, about 50 million, 20% down might be around 10 million. That's not what happened. What happened was we took this one bucket of money and spooled it over and over and over and grew it by reinvesting our cash flow and everything back into it. And that's what allowed us to generate so much wealth. And then as investors came to us and said, we want you to create what you have for yourselves for us. That's where first our joint ventures came from, and now our private equity funds. It's the exact same business model. It thrives in successful times of the cycle. It thrives during downturns. We created it in the downturns. We know that it works really well. And it's good for the community. It's good for residents. It's good for the community as a whole. It changes the way you think about a building. So we don't think about things like paint and carpet. We think about what's the very best roof we can put on this building. Like you hear me like talking about the windows at Old City Hall. Luckily they're less than 10 years old, so it's unlikely that we will replace them during our ownership, even several decades of ownership. But if those windows were not nice new windows, that's what I would be thinking about. Someone who only owns the building for a few years might think about, well, can we sand the windows and kind of stain them or those sorts of things. There's a commitment to our buildings. There's a commitment to our residents, a commitment to the community, a commitment to our investors, that we keep our investors in the deal for decades when that's completely outside of the industry norm. And I promise you're going to start seeing this, because we go and we talk with masterminds and we talk with leaders in our industry.
We're already starting to see it.
And it's been tough. A couple of years ago, they're like, you guys are crazy. You're nuts. That's really interesting.
No one's going to want to get involved with this.
And now, people are starting to say, I'm thinking about an infinite rate of return model, or tell me again how you made that happen. And it warms our heart, because it's good for all of the communities across all of the country, all of the buildings, all of the investors. We're excited that we have a small part of changing the industry. And of course, our investors love it because they see their wealth growing. We have investors from some of our earlier deals that are getting into our later deals. And imagine how fun it is when you get kind of a free investment, because you're taking the bucket of money from an earlier investment that you're still a part of, you're still getting that cash flow, and you're putting it into the next investment, and then you're participating in that. I think people are starting to really see and experience how quickly wealth can really grow, and how this is true passive income, true generational wealth. Generational wealth isn't owning a building for 3 years and then selling it and buying the next one. Generational wealth is owning something for a generation, for 25 years.
Yeah. Awesome.
I did the numbers. Let's do them again just for perfect clarity and everything here. Again, these are all projections. This is a really simplified projection. We have this as an email that's gone out before, so you can search your email for it if you'd like to have a copy of it. Of course, the replay will be going out tomorrow, but either myself or Rachel is happy to email this to you. This just kind of gives you a quick 2-minute understanding, but again, just know that this is all projections. I'm gonna go ahead.
And one thing, that I never get bored talking about is 5% of the profit that we make of our profit from the fund goes to our staff in a profit share. 5% of our profit goes to charity. Elaine and I had the great privilege to build a school that just opened here a few months ago, 40,000 square foot office building that we converted to a school. So the money that you put into the fund does incredible good in so many ways. It makes buildings that need some TLC beautiful. Makes the world a better place to live in the most tangible sense of the word, and then does good in so many other ways. We're helping a local homeless shelter renovate their kitchen. There's a lot of passion projects that we have, and this is a fun way that we get to give back as well.
You want to do the numbers again?
So people would to make this incredibly simple, if you were to put in $1 million here, or what's this?
We did 100,000.
100K. Okay. So if you put in 100K in year one, you probably wouldn't get anything back. We're placing that capital, putting that money to work, putting our business plan in place. In year 2 and year 3, you might get another 10K back or something like that.
Someone had asked, has distribution started for Fund 1? So Fund 1 is 11 months old, and we've not done distributions yet. We did do a refi on the 29 single family home portfolio for Fund 1, and we're using that capital to acquire a portion of residences of Discovery Square. So we're increasing the overall wealth of that fund. And then I anticipate the first distributions from Fund 1 will go out in likely Q2 of 2023 from the profits from Nicholas and Oliver, which were acquired about a year ago. Again, fitting in that about 6 quarters into any given fund is when we'll start distributions.
Yep. So year 1, you're not going to get much back. Year 2, year 3, you're getting maybe 10K in cash flow, somewhere in that territory. And then year 3 to 4, that's that fulcrum when we hit the cash out refi on the properties in the portfolio. So that's when you get the vast majority of your capital back, and you might get 60, 70, 80% of your capital back in that time frame. Maybe it's at the end of year 1, start of year 4, somewhere in that territory. And then at that point, you've gotten all your money back, but you are still in the deal forever, and you continue to get quarterly cash flow distributions. And then as we hit second and third generation cash out refis, 10 and 15 years from now, you still get these huge boluses of cash. And we could try to project out with organic rent growth and whatever what those could be, but suffice to say, those numbers will go up over time, and it's just going to keep getting better. So this is the basis to all the wealth that we've created, and it's it's hopefully easy to understand with just some hypothetical numbers here. But over a 20-year period, you could expect total returns of about 600K, despite having all of your original capital back. And that's the thing that people don't get is they're like, oh well, 600K, maybe I could find some crypto investment or something where I could get that that kind of return, but you haven't gotten your original investment back in that other. And I'm not aware of any other opportunity that has this type of return. This is a kind of crazy rate of return you're able to get with this opportunity. So
absolutely. One thing to note here is with all of these numbers, we don't factor in inflation. That's a practice that we don't think is very ethical, because of course all of the numbers look good when you're projecting future inflation. So we always speak in today's dollars, but we did give a little bit of a snippet at the top there that in say year 20, when all of the assets are sold, we would anticipate that final equity distribution might be about $1 for dollar from the original investment. So we say it's 100,000, but really 20 years from now, 100,000 will be about $200,000. So again, just going back to that narrative that we're very conservative with our projections. We're so conservative that we don't put organic rent growth or inflation into our projections, simply because we think it's kind of a sneaky way to fool investors. And so we always speak in today's dollars. So be thinking about that as you're comparing this to, say, other investments. And again, just keep reminding yourself that you have all of your capital back after the first few years. That's really what separates this from other investment opportunities out there.
There's a question, is there a final date on the PPM or the contract of Fund 2? Not 100% sure what that question is. Is
Yeah.
it the final funding date or something of that
Yeah,
nature?
I'm not 100%.
Yeah,
If you could clarify that question. This is our last slide. So this is just kind of our summary slide.
Yep.
So Black Swan Real Estate Fund 2, Residences of Discovery Square, will be co-owned by Fund 1 and Fund 2, blackswanfund2.com.
50% of it will be owned by Fund 1, 50% will be owned by Fund 2.
So no fees whatsoever. That really differentiates us from other private equity options. We target Class A and Class B long-term residential real estate in Rochester, Minnesota and Tacoma, Washington. Nick and I are the fund managers. We have about 12 years of experience, about $1/3 billion in assets under management, lots of vertical integrations. That's how we're able to get, these amazing construction outcomes. So many construction sites happening all at once. Property management is vertically integrated. Acquisitions is vertically integrated. And then
we have a new vertical integration too. We just
hired. Hold on, let me finish my last spot because I know you're excited.
I'm sorry, I thought you were on the last bullet point.
And then 100% of all of the profits go to our investors and before we get any split whatsoever. Again, we think that's the right thing to do. We think that we really need to be decreasing the risk of our investors before we participate in any profit. That's always been our business model, but that's particularly important during any times with economic challenges. I will wrap there. Black Swan Fund 2, TC, if you clarify your question, we'd love to answer that. I think if you're asking, is there a final investment date? It's either when the fund fills, we have less than 5 million left, or December 23rd. All capital has to hit our bank account before December 23rd. And Nick, let's talk about our appliance company. And then we'll end here.
That actually wasn't the one I was going to talk about.
Oh, what are you going to talk about? He always keeps me on my toes. I have to hear while we're talking to you guys what's going on.
We just got a signed offer letter for our cleaning manager.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yes, that's another vertical integration piece. Our vended cleaning prices keep going up, and the quality's just, no one's ever happy with their cleaner completely, but so we're finally bringing that in-house. We're gonna have a full-time cleaning person or cleaning supervisor, and then we're gonna go hire half a dozen, full-time cleaners, something like that, whatever it takes. And we're going to, improve our quality and then reduce our cost to our assets. So I'm really excited about that. And then, we're starting an appliance company. Figure we'll spend at least $500,000 on appliances this year. So at some point, you just got to open an appliance company. And it's really frustrating because we try all these different appliance companies. And we actually have to send a member of our team to kind of babysit the delivery tech. Make sure they don't dent the appliance. And
they'll literally leave it on the curb.
Yeah.
We're like, that's not where I do my dishes. Then, I don't know if that's where you do your dishes, but we do our dishes. And the tenant thinks they're our
employee. They're like, what the heck? Why didn't your guy do his job? And it's like, well, that's not our guy. That was so, if we already are sending an employee out to do the deliveries, we might as well just own the appliance company and then we can just do the delivery ourselves and it'll get done right. So really exciting vertical integration pieces. That's the thing that really sets us apart is we own the property management company, we own the construction company, now we own the cleaning company, we own the appliance company, and
it drives quality and
quality.
Consistency, and we're able to make plans around it of this is how many construction workers we'll have, or this is the date that cleaning is happening. So yeah, the vertical integration, it's always challenging. It's never fun.
It's hard.
It's what makes it makes Nick and I's life 10x more complicated than if we only did asset management, but it's where all the value is created. Absolutely all the value.
Yep.
Someone asked a common question. What happens if anything were to happen to Nick and I, who would manage the funds?
Yep.
So we have, so number one, both Fund 1 and Fund 2 have life insurance on both Nick and I. That's new since the last time we met with our investors. Just again, thinking of any way we can to increase security and safety. We're not planning on going anywhere. And in fact, we're in the gym 5 days a week, taking very good care of our health, but life insurance is important. But then we have a very robust trust. And in that trust is a 7-person board of directors. So if one of us were to pass away or to be incapacitated, the other would run the company. If both of us were to be unavailable to run the company, there's our 7-member board of directors. 6 of those folks are the best real estate experts, both locally and in the country, that we could find, sourced from our local area, and then also sourced from the best masterminds that we're a part of, household names that you all would recognize. And then the 7th is a professional trustee who would essentially be the tiebreaker if it were needed with that 6-member board. It's a very robust trust. Banks love it. So typically banks will require when a loan goes out, that there be life insurance specifically for that loan. And every bank we've ever worked with has waived it for us because our trust is so robust. So that's what would happen. Hopefully it never comes to bear, but it's something, we think about a lot as parents of many young children and as leaders of this very big business, is how we would, protect all of the things that we've created in our lifetime if we were unavailable.
The funds also own life insurance policies on Elaine and I.
Yeah, I mentioned that.
Okay, so somehow I missed that just now.
That's okay. You're working hard through your vaccine fever. TC, I'm still not understanding your question. I wonder about the ownerships or stakes owned of the fund to have a final date. I'm going to give a stab. Perhaps you're thinking of like that 20 to 25 year time frame. If that's your question, we do not have a specific date. So for example, we did not want to say like December 31st of 2042, 20 years from now, as an example, because what if the economy is struggling at that point? What if it doesn't make sense to sell at that point? So we give ourselves a window there to look for the best opportunity to finally liquidate all of the assets and to officially close the fund. Again, everyone has $0 in the fund. Everyone's at an infinite rate of return. So what we would all hope is that these funds would go on for hundreds of years. We merely have to limit it because of human lifespan. So I'm not sure if that's your question. If that's not your question, feel free to block a time on, either Nick or I's calendar, send us an email, whatever we can do. I apologize that you've asked it a couple of different ways, and I'm not quite grasping what that question is.
Okay, we got it. Anyone's welcome to block time on the.
I got it. Yay. I think that was my second or third iteration. So good. Very good.
Yeah, feel free to block time if you have questions about the fund, if you want to make a first commitment, or you want to increase your existing commitment, whatever we can do to serve you. If you just want to chat about your relationship with your spouse, or you a real estate investment problem you're working on in your home market, whatever you want to chat with us about, we just try to make ourselves available for our investors.
One of our investors who won a raffle that we put on at a conference that we recently were a sponsor of, she won a day of coaching with us, and so she's probably in the air flying.
Is that tomorrow?
That's tomorrow.
Wow.
So she's coming and she's going to do like a full 8 hours of coaching with us. That's how much we love meeting with our investors and adding value and teaching and just spreading the way we do business. So thank you all so much for participating tonight, for hanging with almost 2 hours. I hope this has been a really valuable time. I hope it's been as fun for you to see the assets that are going into Fund 2 and residences of Discovery Square as it has been for us to share these amazing deals. We are just overjoyed at the amount of wealth that we're creating and sharing with all of our investors, and we want you to be a part of that. BlackSwanFund2.com. I think Riley has put our calendars and those sorts of things in the chat, so grab those. Of course, meetblackswan.com is kind of our main website to get our calendars, our newsletters, our Facebook group. We try to be very available to our investors. I think that's a wrap.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night.